They're paid for doing nothing now, aren't they?
Yes.
Half of them.
Yes, yes. So, were you born in Netheravon?
No. I was born at Craven in Kent.
Oh, in Kent.
Yes.
Yes.
Kentish maid.
How did you come?
Well, my father was a native of West Lavington, the Sawyer family.
Oh.
4 generations of them there.
Yes.
My grandfather was a vet.
Yes.
And he had a small farm as well.
Yes. And so he came to Lavington, your father?
Came back to Lavington to run his father's business, you see. My grandfather was very ill.
So you went to school in Lavington?
Oh, I've seen some changes. Talk about going through scrubs, bushes.
Dear.
No. I'll tell you about when I came to Netheravon. That's what you want to hear. Well, I came to Netheravon from Fruiton. I was the nursery governess there. At the captain's. I had 2 little girls to teach. But I got so tired of nothing having any time to myself.
Yes.
And I saw this advert in the paper, wanted a supplementary teacher at Netheravon School.
Yes.
To teach standard 1.
Was that the
2,
babies?
and 3.
Yes.
That's how it would stay.
Yeah.
I came for an interview at the lodge. You know the lodge where you turn round at Cholston, don't you? That nice little house there. That's where I was interviewed by the vicar, Reverend Pitt, and Miss Huzzy, Arthur Huzzy's aunt,
Yes.
and Mr. Forder, Mr. Tom Forder. I'd say a word about Tom
I've
I've
Forder.
heard the name, yeah.
They were the managers, as they called them in those days. They've gone a step higher now. Call themselves governors now, don't they?
Yes.
Oh, the pomps and vanities of this wicked world, my dear.
Oh, you're so right.
Yes, there was a great deal of poverty in the village in those days. Of course, the village in those days, that was a cavalry school had just come then.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And of course, we had the big knobs in the big houses. The manor here was let.
Yes.
I remember one party that came there was Princess Alexandra's father and mother came there for their honeymoon. Lord and Lady Early.
What was that, Fiddleton Manor?
Good gracious.
Well, I got to go on. I went to lodge at the schoolhouse.
Yes.
In those days, the schoolhouse
Yes.
was partly furnished by the man that left the money for 12 poor boys to be educated.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And what was a schoolhouse was a school for these 12 boys.
Yes.
The big rooms. Have you ever been in the schoolhouse?
Yes, when Mrs. Wilkinson was there.
Well, I lodged there while I was in Netheravon School. I had the little bedroom this end, and Mr. and Mrs. Capel, she was Mrs. Capel then. I suppose her salary then was about just over £1 a week. Mine was £30 a year, which ran out to about 12 and sixpence a week. But Mrs. Capel was a real Christian woman. There was her and Red Sanger's old aunt, Polly Sanger. Polly Stevens she was then, though she married Reggie's uncle. She took the infants, and Mrs. Cable took all the others after they were 14 years of age and left school. My boy Arthur, my eldest son that comes down from Scotland now,
Yes.
he was educated at Fiddleton School. He left Fiddleton School at 14 and went up to London because there was nothing here for him to do. And I had a brother in London that worked at a very big warehouse, one of the largest warehouses in the East End. Thousands of them worked there. And I wrote to my eldest brother and I said, there's nothing here for Arthur. Could you get him a job at Jeremiah Rotherham? He wrote back, bring Arthur up on Monday and we'll see what you can do. I took him up. He had an interview and they engaged him. And he worked there for 15 years.
How did you travel in
that
those
was
days?
education in those days.
Yeah.
The children were grounded in reading, writing, and arithmetic. And if, as my poor dear father used to say to me, if you've got anything up here, you can do the rest yourself after you leave school. Those were the days, my dear. Children went to school to learn,
Yes.
not to idle, which I'm afraid half of them do today. Am I right or am I wrong?
You're right. How did you get to London?
It grieves me. It grieves me to think that there's so much unwanted labour today. Why is it? Do you know, Mrs. Cable and I, the people's children were so poor. Some of them came to school without any socks on because their mothers couldn't afford to buy them for them. And Mrs. Cable and I repeatedly cut up our own old skirts and made little knickers for some of the little boys. You'd hardly credit it, would you? When I came here, a farm's workers' wages was 10 shillings a week. And they had to pay 1 shilling a week back for their house. And I knew a family. I lived in one cottage up here, half of Mrs. Gilbert's cottage at Front End.
Yes.
Emma Druitt, her name was. She had 8 children. And she had 10 shillings a week. And she had to pay back a shilling for her rent. And her poor old husband, I think she used to give him a shilling a week on a Saturday for his to go and get his job a beer. And those children were kept on bread and lard nearly.
Yes.
They never knew the taste of butcher's meat. And why? For the rich to get richer and the poor to get poorer. Isn't that so?
Yes.
Oh, it makes my heart bleed when I think sometimes. Now when I see the children riding up to school on their bicycles and carted to school in the buses. And we had boys and girls walk from Beecher's Farm down to Fiddleton
Did you
School
really? Yes.
with hardly a bit of shoe on their feet. I don't know. I think the tables have turned wrong, really.
Too far in the other direction.
Yes. Too far. Too far. My husband,
Yes.
Bert Blake,
Yes.
we'll talk about him, I expect.
Yeah.
He worked for the contractors when we came over here to live. I came to be near my old in-laws.
Yes.
Why I came here, else we were living at Winterbourne Earl.
Oh.
And he was getting, what do you think, 4 halfpenny an hour. And he was a full-fledged, he served 7 years under Sam King, builder down at Netherhaven. Oh, when I think of it all, I remember him coming home after we came over here, and he was working for Working Ways at the camp.
Oh, yes.
And he comes to me one morning later, and I said, "Oh, girl, I've got 80 an hour rise."
Yes.
Was he always in work?
But
Was he always in work, or
no,
was
he wasn't.
he a bit
And
erratic?
Joe,
Was he?
and once when I had Teresa, my daughter, that was a teacher up here after, she won her 11 plus and went to South Wilts
Yes.
Girls' School.
Grammar school.
And what was I saying about Teresa?
About being in work.
Yeah, and he was out of work for nearly 6 months, and he wouldn't go to the dole. And if I hadn't been thrifty and saved every halfpenny I could, we should have been in the workhouse. And in those days, you had a means test, you see.
Yes.
They could have come and taken anything out of this house.
Terrible.
But still we lived through it. We held our heads high. And I can truthfully say, I never owed anyone a halfpenny. And I won't now. They all laugh at me, Mrs. Smith does. I say, Mrs. Smith, she used to give me my dinners. I say, come in, bring your Billy Doo in. Oh, go on, she said. And you came in the other day and I gave her my electric light money, which was nearly £28. She said, you've always got it ready, Mrs. May. I said, well, it isn't my money, darling, I said. When I've paid my household expenses, give Mrs. Gilbert what I give for my dinners. And the extras that she does for me, the rest goes put away, because it isn't my money. Is it? No, I don't believe it. Oh, no, man. Grandfather Blake used to say to me, my father-in-law, I believe in paying and be paid, my dear, he used to say. No, I don't want to die in debt. No. I only wish that I didn't have to be where I am, paid by the,
state.
you know what I mean, don't you? But you see, the wages are so high now, aren't they?
Yes.
Employment. And now what they paid now, when I think of it. Never mind. Well, I left home at 18.
Did you?
Went up to London as a nursery governess near Harrow on the Hill.
Yes, yes.
You know what my salary was then? I lived as one of the family. Nursery governess, and lived as one of the family. £10 a year. I remember my first month's wages, 16 and 8pence.
Where were you actually born, Mrs. Blake? Can you get it to her?
In Kent.
Oh, in Kent. I missed that bit.
Never, if we had a penny, we never thought of spending a penny. To the havens. If it's a chocolate cream, I can see it now, which now is little fallen apart. We used to go into a little shop at Lavington. I and my sister went to a private school at Market Lavington. And we had a pet. Daisy had, Margaret, her name was, that we called her Daisy. She had a penny one week and I had a penny the next.
That
And
was a
I
lot of money.
remember I, in those days, used to buy myself a Chelsea bun.
Oh.
Oh, darling, that when I lie here now and I think of it, I'm often back, you know, my childhood. We used to go at a mile and a half to walk to school. We went to a private school. We went from West Lavington to Market Lavington. And the farmers' daughters and the tradesmen's daughters from little Chevron, great Chevron, a lot of us together. I think the fees at Miss Shannock's school was then about 15 shillings a term. You had, and we were taught. And we were taught our manners too. Never mind. Now about this Netherhaven. When I came, the brewery was there then, you see.
Yes.
Old Miss Shazzy was alive.
Yes.
And that was the maintenance of Netherhaven, really, till the cavalry school came.
And they came after.
They came after. And then, of course, all the cottages was occupied by the military. All these cottages, grooms' wives. Strange to say,
Yes.
I came to Netherhaven on October the 16th, 05. And I went to Fiddleton Church on the Sunday. Because they couldn't give me lodgings in Netherhaven. So I lodged at Fiddleton Schoolhouse. Mrs. Cable took me in for 8 shillings a week. And I went to church on the Sunday morning. Canon Cooley came. He was the Reverend Cooley then. And he said, "Oh, Miss Sawyer," he said, "you're lodging in our village, so we shall expect you to attend Fiddleton Church. And as you're lodging in Fiddleton, I should like you to come be a teacher in the Sunday school. You have to be a teacher in the Sunday school." Well, I said, "I'm Netherhaven." So he said, "Well, you can come to Fiddleton in the morning, Netherhaven in the morning, and take the Sunday school in the afternoon." So I was divided in that way. You see, we didn't have any freedom in those days. Not for the idle hands to do. You see, I'm afraid they do today, don't they? Couldn't any of them. No, darling. But I don't regret any of it, darling.
How long were you teaching there?
Only at Netherhaven a year,
Yeah.
because my mother died. And there was a vacancy at West Lavington, and my father was the correspondent for the schools
Yes.
at that day. And the headmaster said to my father, he said, "Haven't you got a daughter teaching at Netherhaven?" He said, "Yes." Well, he said, why don't she come over here? She could live cheaper." And father wrote to me, and I talked to the headmistress about it, and she said, "Well, we're sorry to lose you, Miss Sawyer." But she said, "We quite understand." And I left, you see, in 12 months. But in the meantime, my husband had made his discovery that he'd fallen in love with me. And he regretted it, my going, but still I went.
Yes.
And, well, we were courting for nearly 5 years because
Really?
we hadn't got money, darling, in those days. Didn't do it on the HP like they do today, you know.
No.
But I was very happy. 28 years, very happy life with my dear husband, 3 children, Arthur and Eric and Teresa. They're all good children to me. Devoted. Devoted.
When you moved to West Lavington, Mrs. Blake,
Pardon.
when you moved to West Lavington, was your sort of future husband still here?
Yes,
How did you manage to stay in touch? Did you write?
I
or-
didn't. All our love, our courtship was done by letter.
I see.
Because, now this is an interesting thing. You knew the Smiths, have heard of the Smiths at the post office, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Walter Smith, that built your bungalows where you live, and his house, Bert and Walter Smith were both apprenticed for 7 years at Sam King's Builders. And when they left, both left at the same time, as soon as the 7 years was up, he gave them 7 shillings a week wages. And they heard that there was Tidworth Barracks was going to be built.
Ah, yes.
And that's where my husband was working when I first met him,
Yes.
building Tidworth Barracks. You see, when I came, there was no Air Force.
No.
The cavalry school was up there, you see, where the Nobs
Yes.
lived in all the big houses.
Where was the builder then? Whereabouts in Netheravon was the builder?
You know what they call, you know where Margaret's shop is, they call it?
Yeah, Carter's Drapery.
Well, you know the house next to it.
Oh, yes.
What is it, the name of the people now? It's sold now again, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, the large house where Mr. Shannon used to live.
Yes,
That's,
that
what,
was the house. Kings lived there.
that's why it was King's Hill,
That's
was it?
that's why it was called King's Hill.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Nothing to do with
That's
royalty.
why it was called King's Hill.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Sam King, he married a teacher, you see,
Oh, yeah.
from Netheravon, came
Yeah.
to Netheravon. Same as Whitmarsh married Miss Berry's sister.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Also Whitmarsh's mother was Miss Berry's sister, you see.
Yeah.
Arthur was 2 years old when I came to Netheravon, Arthur Whitmarsh.
You taught Arthur then, did you?
But
You taught Arthur.
no, I didn't, because he was only 2 years old when I came. He hadn't started school.
Oh, so you didn't come across
No.
him subsequently?
I
then?
left school. I left there after I'd been there a year, you see, went home.
Yeah.
But being connected with dear Bert,
Yeah.
I knew about, I used to come here sometimes to Mrs. Cable's, perhaps for a weekend,
Ah,
you
yes.
see.
And how did you get here?
Well, you came by train to Woodborough.
Ah. And then what?
If I hadn't got the money to hire Cecil Sanger to come and meet me,
Yes.
I had to walk.
Yes.
Well, he had a pony and trap.
He had a little pony and trap. He was a cripple.
Oh,
I
I see.
expect you've heard about Cecil Sanger.
Yeah.
You'd hear about him from Reg.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember the day Reg was born over
Do you?
there.
Yes.
Yes. Because I was here for the weekend to become engaged to Bert,
Oh, I see.
you
Yes.
see. And Mrs. Cable came in to me on the Whit Monday, and she said, Miss Sawyer, she said, do you mind coming in and take Miss Stevens' class? She said, she hasn't turned up this morning. I said, hasn't she? She said, no, Louis Sanger is having a baby.
Would it been district
That
nurse
was
then?
Belgium.
Was that the district
That
nurse?
was her age.
Where was the district nurse?
Well, she hadn't arrived, you see. So I had to go and stay. Mrs. Sanger, well, Miss Stevens she was then, went and stayed till the district nurse arrived, you see.
Who was the district nurse?
Nurse, or what was her name? I can see her now in her pony and trap. She's come round in a pony and trap. Whatever was her name? Walker.
Walker.
Nurse Walker.
Jenny Walker, was it?
Nurse Walker.
Yes. Where did she live?
Well, you know where Mr. Pinchin's daughter lives?
Yes.
Well, the farthest one down
Oh,
from the shop here.
yes.
That was the nurse's house.
Yes.
Nurse, what the name was here the other day, called on me.
Oh, did she?
Nurse Lewis.
Lewis, yes.
She was here on her.
Yes. Was
She
she?
came in and she kept saying to me, I'm staying with my niece where Mrs. Truitt used to live. And I said, Mrs. Truitt? And then I remembered up the top end, you see, the house is there. I know another Mrs. Truitt lived.
Oh,
And that's where Miss Spooner lives.
I know.
And Mrs. Spooner was her niece.
You know them all.
Yes. Oh, I remember when she was down there looking after her aunt. There was a scandal went going on then in the village, you know.
Oh dear. Hand over the mic.
What scandal. Oh, I say to Mrs. Gilbert sometimes, can't you tell me something different from scandal?
Oh, dear. Where did you live when you came back as a new bride to Netheravon then? Or Fiddleton?
I was married and we went to Winterbourne to live.
Oh, I see.
Had a house at Winterbourne because my husband was working for another Mr. Smith, Walter Smith's brother, Elf,
Oh.
builder at Winterbourne Earls.
Mm.
And we had a nice house there.
Was he
Well,
working?
then this cripple that died here,
Yes.
Willie Chaplin, the cripple, died here.
Mm.
And they wrote, my father-in-law wrote, or mother-in-law wrote and said that Willie had passed away.
Yes.
And would we come and live next door, you see?
Yes.
Much to my regret, we came.
Mm.
It wasn't. Well, I said, well, Bert, I said, you'd have done it for my father.
Yes.
I said, and we're married.
Mm.
We're one.
Mm.
I said, what is one is the others.
Yes.
So we came.
Mm.
And
When was that?
in 16, Eric was, my boy Eric,
Yes.
was born in the January, and we came over here in the March the 16th. If you have heard of White's, the carrier, have you?
Not offhand,
Mm.
no.
He lived where the old owl is now, what they call it, the old owl.
Oh,
The carrier. He brought it,
Yes.
moved us over here.
With a horse and cart?
Yeah, no, we just started the motor.
Oh, so you had a big van?
Of course, when I first came here, the carrier went from Netheravon only twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and Thursdays and divided.
Oh, yes.
Did you place an order with him, or did he just bring stuff on spec?
And
Did you see the carrier and order stuff, get him to get you stuff, or did he just bring what he thought you might require?
No, you see, grandfather and gran living next door. My father and mother-in-law They arranged that for us, you see.
Yes.
Yes, I came over with my two dear boys. Bert was still working there
How did he get to work every day then?
on his bicycle.
Pedal bike.
Yes.
How long?
You know, poor Bert Hayward died, didn't he, a little while ago?
That's right.
His father and some of the other men used to walk to Tidworth to work every week and lie on the floor and then come home Saturdays with their pay packet.
Hard day.
Yes, it's hard days.
A long
And
day.
they worked, yes. You see, Bert used to work sometimes till, well, they always worked Saturdays till 12 o'clock, you see. So 4 and 8 an hour.
Did the war affect the village very
Well,
much?
then the war came.
Yeah.
We came over during the war, you see. The First World War.
Were many men called from the village?
Oh, dreadful. It was dreadful, really, darling. It was dreadful. I told Mrs. Smith, I said, the only time I ever saw my husband bring me over £5 was a fortnight before he died. And do you know what he was doing to earn over £5? Putting the blackouts up at the officers' mess. Staying working till 9 at night.
Did many of the local boys join up?
Well, they did, yeah. They did. They had to. Well, maids had to join. But my husband, being what he was, working, you see, for the state, he wasn't called up. Yes, I've been a widow 43 years.
Long time.
10 shillings a week I have. That's why when they modernised these houses, this Lady Susan came to me. She said, well, Mrs. Blake, she talked like that, very hoarse. Mrs. Blake, she said, of course I have to push your rents up, she said, because Lady Vic and I drew our national savings out to have these houses modernised. I said, oh yes, Lady Susan. And I said, what will my rent be? And she said, 10 shillings a week. I said, I'm afraid I can't. Well, we can only put it up 2/3, she said. It's like that. I was paying £0.50 a week before, you see. Dear Mrs. Wise, I remember it so well. Her son Harry was in the army and retired. Had retired, he was an invalid out. And he got a job at Brighton. And his wife had been helping with the dinners. And dear Mrs. Wise come down and said, because she was a cleaner and at the dinners, charge of the dinners. And she and I were great friends. And she said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I said, I'll come and help you out till you can get someone, just like that. I was glad of the chance to earn.
Yeah.
Do you know what I had?
No.
9 cents an hour.
Oh.
Now look what they're paid. Dear Mrs. Gilbert used to go out and look after the children after.
Yes.
You can remember that, I suppose, Tony, can
Oh yeah, I was trying to tell Eileen what I could remember, but because Mrs. Wise used to supervise as well, didn't she? In the
What?
didn't Mrs. Wise supervise in the playground as well? After dinners?
Mrs. Wise, was she in the playground after dinners?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
After dinner. I used to have to wash up 100 plates because there was 50 children staying then.
Gosh, yes.
I had sweet dessert plates as well as the others. 100 plates
Yes.
and all the cutlery.
I was telling Eileen that I remembered you used to let us sit in the corner and scrape the dinner bins out.
That's right.
We took it in turns.
Yes. And sometimes Susan, what was her name? Not Rogers. Oh, Suzanne and I know they used to come in turn. You used to take it in turn, didn't you, to take the plates round?
Oh, yes. Monitor for the
Yes.
day.
Oh, we were properly organised.
And then they used to, those monitors, if there was a second helping, they had it.
I see, yes. All fair.
Yes. Everything was fair and above board, wasn't it, Tony?
That's
in those
right,
days?
yeah.
The Wilkinsons were there in those days. weren't they?
That's right. She was the headmistress when I started.
Yes. She had an invalid husband, didn't she?
Yeah, I can always remember old Mr. Wilkinson used to send us down the shop for his woodbines.
Yes.
We took it in turns at that as well.
She had to work to keep him.
Yes.
He was what I call a waster, you know. Living off of his wife, as the saying is. Oh, darling. So did Mr. Cable, you would say. Oh, dear. When I think that charity's given away like it was, and I'm always to pink up there, living a soft.
Yes.
And then they call that Christianity. Where does the Christian life come in? Our parsons, as I said to someone the other day, I said, we haven't got parsons now, and we haven't got doctors that we used to have.
No.
Or Dr. Edwards used to cycle down from Uphaven.
Did he really?
Yes,
Yes.
on his bicycle.
Yes.
Now a lazy parson goes round and collects money to buy him a car.
Yes. Yeah. That wasn't much appreciated, was it?
Pardon?
That wasn't much appreciated.
No, I never gave him anything. No. I don't know that we've got a parson. Dear old Canon Finch, when he used to come up to the school, when I couldn't go to church, he'd open that front door. Hello, my dear, how are you today? I said, all right, thank you, Canon. I'll look in after I came back here, okay? And he'd come down and sit down for a few minutes and chat to me like we're talking now.
Mm. Yes. Yes. Sad.
A clergyman came to me he's a friend, he was a clergyman in Montrose, where my son lives. His son went to school with my grandson. And they're retired now. They've got a cottage down at Kingston Royal, is it? Down that way, just on the borders of Wiltshire.
Oh, yes.
And whenever he comes to Tours, he's a retired clergyman.
Mm.
But he and his wife never come to Tours, but they come out to see me.
Yes.
And he said to me the other day when he came, he said, my dear, what is your faith? I said, Jesus. I said, if I do what Jesus did and keep in step with him, I said, I shan't go very far wrong. Well, the clergymen today don't do what Jesus did, do they? Do they now? Do you know that because never been in this house since 12 months ago last Christmas?
Really?
Well, I mean, they're supposed to be the shepherd of a flock, aren't they? No good to go to church and preach if you don't practice.
No.
That's my idea of life. You reap where you have sown, darling.
By their fruits you shall judge them.
What, darling?
By their fruits ye shall judge
That's
them.
quite right, my dear. That's quite true. There's Mr. Pink. The only time you see him is when he goes down to church on a Sunday.
That's true too.
Well, he's just dropped
We're
out.
not born in this world for ourselves, darling.
No, that's quite right.
Our life, people say our life is our own, but it isn't. Our life isn't our own. As I say to Mrs. Gilbert, so many times in the day when I hear of these broken marriages, I say it's the children that gotta suffer. It is so, darling.
Yes.
It is so.
Yes.
The sins of the father shall be visited upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of those that hate me. But I will show mercy unto thousands of those who love me and keep my commandments. It is hard. It is hard. Those poor darling women that brought those children up. Poor old darling, poor old Mrs. Druitt. The 8 children up there, I think of her now sometimes. And yet those children always came to school with clean shoes
Yes.
and got clean pinafore on every morning.
Yes.
The boys with their patched trousers. And they respected. But they don't today. Half of them don't respect their parents, do they? I'm so sorry to see that. I'm so sorry. So sorry. They say there's no Sunday schools now. Well, why?
Where do you suppose we've gone wrong, Mrs. Blake?
What year?
Where do you suppose we've gone wrong?
Who's gone wrong?
Well, your society.
Well, darling, because people don't work. They don't work for their living today, half of them, do they?
No.
They don't.
No.
They don't.
Of course,
I don't hold with this unemployment because, as I say to Mrs. Smith next door, I think if the demand of wages wasn't so high, people would employ, wouldn't they? But you know as well as I do, Tony, and you, dear, if you want something done in your house, a man would come and say, what will you do this for? Well, I can't do it under so-and-so because I've got to pay the one that does it £5 an hour or £3 an hour. You see what I mean? It isn't just, is it, dear? That one should be able to, I say people have to be paid according to what work they're doing.
Yeah.
But for a man that comes and does a bit of painting or put a bit of whitewash on your room, and charge you £2 and £3 an hour. People can't do it, darling, can they? They can't. Dear Mrs. Gilbert came to me 2 years ago. She said, this room wants doing out. Just like that to me. I said, yes, dear, it does. She said, I'll do it for you. I said, you can't do it. She said, I can. She said, I can paper. Of course I can. She papered this room out. Done the painting, the doors. And when I said, what is it? What you can afford to give me?
True Christian.
She is a true Christian. I said, she's got trouble with her girls, darling. She comes and opens her heart to me. But she's a good mother. And I said, they're your children. I said, and a true mother stands up for them, don't she? A true mother.
Yes.
She's a real Christian woman, that woman. She doesn't go to church. But she goes and does the altar and helps clean the church, you see.
Yes.
And our vicar says that you told someone that you're not a Christian unless you go to sacrament. I said, I can have my bread and bread and butter and cup of tea here with dear Mrs. Gilbert every morning. She sits there while I have my breakfast and have a cup of tea, and I pass my bread and butter over to her. I said, this is our sacrament.
Yes, yeah.
And I said, you see, Ellen, I said, it isn't the things that we do, it's the things we leave undone that causes many a sigh at the setting of the sun.
That's right. Yes.
Oh, I wish I'd done so and so, we say, don't we, afterward?
It's too late then.
When it's too late. When it's too late, darling. No. Oh, Dr. Edwards, I said to Dr. Jenkins when I was so ill. I said, why don't you let me slip away? He said, no, it is late. You've got something else to do before you go.
Yes.
Just like that to me. I could tell you some wonderful dreams I've had. One about Delia Lane. Poor Delia. Poor Delia. Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the love of Christ. Oh, I wish the world would change for the better, for the better. What is wealth, darling, after all? What is it? I think the humbler you are, the better life is for you. Well, I don't know. I often wish I do. I try to help myself all I can now. I'm still busy crocheting.
Are you?
I'll surely show you some of my work. I'll get out of bed. I can still walk around, you know. Can you? Yes. Here, Mrs. Punter.
Yes.
They're all in their 80s, you see, darling.
Yes. Mrs. Punter comes along to our meetings.
Yes, she comes to see me sometimes, your Ivy doll.
Oh, isn't that beautiful?
I can't see, I only feel now. It's very simple. This is the best spread for my darling Teresa.
It's absolutely amazing. That is beautiful. Absolutely.
Now I started there, darling. I can't
Yes.
see.
In the middle there.
Yes, with 6 chain.
Yes.
If you want a copy, make one. And do 12 treble in it.
Let me.
You're talking over my head.
And I,
Yes. Doesn't mean a lot to me, I'm afraid.
6 chain.
that's
Yes.
you, that one, darling. 6 chain and
Yeah.
do 12 treble into it.
12 trebles. Yeah.
And then divide that into 4. And every you see that when
Oh,
you
yes.
get to
Yes.
the 10, like the 4 center stitches,
Yeah.
you do 2 treble, 2 chain, 2 treble, all in the one old
Chain.
loop.
Yeah.
Then you go on round it till you get to the to make the next short one. You see.
Yes.
And you do that, make the 4 center, the 4, and then in between is only 2 chain and 2 treble in every loop till you get to your corner one again.
2 treble, 2 chain in each loop, isn't it? Right.
Till we get to the corner of it, I suppose.
You got it, darling? And you see,
Yes.
if you want it with more of these, you
Yes.
do more treble and divide it out and get.
Yeah.
I made a lovely shawl with. I sent it to a boy that I knew, well, a friend of Teresa's, really,
Yes.
for his first little son that's born. Lovely white shawl, and I made that out of dear Mrs. Couchfold.
Oh yes. Yes.
Brings me old garments, and I unravel them.
Yes.
But this is all new wool.
Yeah.
This is.
It's beautiful. Really lovely. No mistakes. It's
Well,
incredible.
any time that you're passing, I should like to see you.
Thank you. Yes, I will.
Pop in.
Yes.
If you can't get on with this, I'll tell you.
I do a bit of weaving.
What? You do a bit of weaving, do
Yes.
you? Mm. Or when we taught the sewing at school,
Yes.
they had to be taught how to make a buttonhole.
That's right. I remember that.
Do you remember
Yes.
it? The bar
Yes.
and the round.
I can still do it.
Do you still do it? The children were taught years ago, you know.
Yes.
No, I don't know. When I was told that children go to, well, I had a girl come in here one day and she said, was going to Durrington School. And she said, well, I said, what is your homework? Because I too was to take in. I got the 13th table to write out. She said, there isn't a 13th table. I said, you've learned to multiply, haven't you? What do you mean? She said. At Durrington School, girl. Oh,
They don't teach the
I
multiplication
don't know.
tables,
They're
do
doing.
what's
They're,
wrong?
they're going back to teaching the tables again now.
Yeah.
My first sewing lesson at school, I had to make a top for a milk jug
Top for a milk jug.
with the little beads all the way round.
Yes,
Do you remember them?
yes, darling. I do remember.
And my
that.
first knitting was a kettle holder.
My boy Arthur learned to knit when he was in the infant school up at Fiddleton School.
Yes, the boys always
That was
had.
the only thing he used to be kept in for, because he used to get his stitches off his needle when he was an infant. And he used to say, Mummy, I can't do it. I used to say, no, darling, I know it's hard. I said, Mummy couldn't knit till she went, till I came to Netheravon School. And he said, how did you manage it, Mummy? I said to Mrs. Cable, I can't knit. I said, I was taught crochet at school, went to a private school and did embroidery and all that kind of thing. And Mrs. Cable said, oh, I'll soon show you. I said, within a week I could knit a baby sock. You see, like you, for instance, if you, dear Mrs. what's the name couldn't, she told me crocheting here. One day she said, I can't crochet. I said, don't say that, Mrs. Gilbert. I said, anyone, it's as easy as a baby can do it. Because I think you've only got one needle instead of two. And you know, she crochets most beautiful blankets.
Does she?
Yeah.
That's lovely. So
nice,
neat.
isn't
It really is.
Well, dear,
That's my old lady's to show.
you're welcome to come in any time.
Yes,
I
I'll bring,
like someone that I can talk to.
I'll bring my crochet with me.
You've got that, haven't you, darling?
Yes.
I think you have. You see, if you want more of these, you put on more stitches and divide it into 6. Or 8 if you want to, you see, darling.
Yes, yes.
If you want it more ornamental.
No, I like it like that. It's lovely.
And I can sit here, I can't see, I can feel it.
You can feel
see.
it now, yes.
I know when I get to my corner and I
No mistakes in it. None at all.
I used to make the most beautiful mat. I made a beautiful rug. And that was in a lady, Mrs. Lane, you still did used to give me your ladies.
Yes.
And there was what they call a coffee cloth. And that was in 8 showing them up.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And I gave that pattern, I gave all my crochet hooks and things to my daughter-in-law. My granddaughter-in-law, rather.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
How many grandchildren?
I've got 4 grandchildren and 5 great-grandchildren.
Have you really? Yes.
Mm. And you've got 2 dear children, boy and girl, is it?
Oh, that's me, Mrs. Blake.
Do they go to school?
Yeah, Deborah goes to Fiddleton,
Oh, does she?
but Christopher's only 4 at the moment.
Only 4. He's a
And-
lovely little boy then.
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
He's down at the school now. They operate a play school in the school at Netheravon.
Oh, do they?
So he's going there 3 mornings
Oh,
a week.
yes. Yes.
It was a strange thing, actually. Do you remember the 100th celebrations for your birthday
Yes.
when we all turned
Yes.
up? Well, at the time you were 100 and the oldest in the village.
Mm.
Christopher hadn't long been born and was the youngest in the
Oh,
village.
really?
You know, which was a strange
Oh, yes.
coincidence at the time.
Really?
But at the time of your
Oh,
thing,
fancy. Fancy. Mm.
Deborah won at the painting competition.
Someone said to me the other day, how old is Peter Hayward? I said he was born in 31.
Oh, same age as me
They said,
then.
how do you remember that? I said, well, Gran Blake died. I said, and I had to go round to see Peter's father because he was to do with the Donkey Club, you see, Wilts. And I went to collect the money, you know, the funeral money in those days.
Yes. It's a donkey.
And Peter was born that day, on the same day as Gran Blake died.
what was the Donkey Club?
What?
What was the Donkey Club?
The Wilts Society.
Oh, is it-
Peter Hayward was there was the collector for it, you see.
Yeah. What did they actually do?
You paid so much a year, you see, and then when anyone died, you had the funeral expenses paid.
Oh, I see. How did it get the name Donkey Club?
Well, I don't know. It's just a phrase that they used to use
I
years
see.
ago.
It's strange you mentioned Peter Hayward because his grandson is also going to the play school.
Is he?
He's only just started.
Oh, yeah. His
So,
grandson.
yeah, so Peter's a grandfather now.
Mm-hmm. Teresa taught Peter Hayward,
Did she?
my daughter. Mm.
Because, of course, Peter only lives round the corner from
I
you.
know he does. He built it, well, practically built his own house.
He's very handy, yeah.
Mhm.
Of course, he's got racehorses there now.
He was one of Bishop Wordsworth's boys, wasn't he?
Was he?
Bishop Wordsworth's school.
Oh, he never talks about that.
Don't they? He went to the high school.
Yeah,
He was one of the first scholarship boys, I think.
was he?
Lucy Leach was one of the. She went to Bishop Wordsworth School, you know,
Yeah,
and it was for boys and girls.
yeah.
Of course, Lucy Leach is connected with my family because Bert Mead was a distant cousin of mine. Bert Mead.
That's Mrs. Mead down Lower
Mhm.
Street, is it?
Yes. You see, all three of those girls passed and went to high school.
Yeah. Of course, I suppose when you were a youngster, people didn't travel round very much, did they?
No, no. There was none of that in those days.
There's Peter now,
Is it?
just gone by with his horse.
He's a girl, isn't
He's a very hard
he?
worker.
He's a hard
He
worker.
really is.
People say, where did he get it? I said, by hard work, isn't it?
Mm. It's still hard work now,
Yes.
I think.
That's what I say about the children. They say, well, why is it come to it? I said, because they work to get where they are, don't they? You've got to.
Oh, yeah.
God helps those who help themselves.
The state helps the rest.
School dinners have arrived.
Where were the school dinners prepared in your day, Mrs. Blake? Can you remember?
From Tuesday.
It was Pusey,
Yes.
was it? I didn't know.
Yes, the old man that used to bring the dinners. I keep in touch with his wife now. Through Mrs. Ellis.
Yeah.
She lives up at Chisholmbury, near the Red Lion.
Oh, yeah.
She's like me. That Darby and Joan were the lovely old thing. You see, that was Mrs. Finch and Lady Fisher that started that.
Yeah.
I happened to say to Canon Finch one day, I said, there's nothing done for the old people, I said. People that can't leave their homes and go and travel. I said, it's nice if they could meet together. And they started it.
Yes, yes.
That was in the hall, wasn't it?
Yes. In the hall. And we built that hall, you see, by voluntary work.
Yeah.
Voluntary work.
That was a few years ago too, wasn't it?
Yes. Dear Miss Wordsworth, it was the school mistress, used to get these concerts out. My dear old Arthur used to be in the plays, I remember.
Where were village meetings held before the village hall was there?
In the school, in Fiddleton School.
And was there much socialising at all as a
And
group?
when I first came in round here, the Reverend Cooley used to have the what's the name, meetings there, Bible meetings in the school
Yeah.
for the young.
And of course, the parish
And-
council formed in 1894,
Yeah.
so I suppose their meetings were in the school as well, were they?
What?
Were the parish council meetings in the hall?
Yes.
In the school, sorry?
Yes. Yes.
Because that started in
Yeah.
1894.
Oh.
You were never involved with the parish council running of
No.
things?
No. No.
Only usually they used to employ teachers for the clerk jobs, you know, things like that.
When we used to have to fill the vacant, any of the forms, and you know, the teacher. That was my job at Netheravon School. All the forms had to go in on a Friday of those children that hadn't attended school. And the inspectors used to come round. Why isn't your child been at school? With a Miss Jones used to come round on a motor bicycle, I remember, when Arthur and Eric were at school. And mine was never away from school, only when they was ill, had chicken pox or anything of that sort. They all loved school, all three of them. Tracy used to love school.
What were the school hours in those days?
From 9 to 12,
Yeah.
we used to open school at 9, prayers, then the register was called. And if anyone was late, they were not allowed in.
Oh.
You see? Then they were blacklisted, you see. They were late.
Oh, I see.
Yes, my lady with
No,
my
no.
dinner.
It's my wife.
Who?
It's
Mrs.
my
Mills.
wife. My wife.
Who's this? Oh, this I thought.
No,
this was
no.
your wife.
They let me off early for good behaviour.
Oh. You've met Mrs. Blake, have you?
Yes, I have. Yes, yes.
You see your husband behaving himself, are you?
Not very often.
I expect he's quite enjoying himself in here, isn't he? Having a good
Yeah.
old chat.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, lovely.
Well, I've been telling you a lot of home truths,
Yes, well,
haven't
I'll
I,
come
darling?
and,
You have.
Shall I come and tell you I'm going out if you want me to go again? Yeah, but nip down on the phone.
Well, I should soon have another birthday, shan't I?
You will.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
not long now.
Arthur and Margaret are coming down from Scotland.
Oh, are they? Yes.
Oh, what you want
yes.
to speak
Oh, I wouldn't
Yeah.
miss it, Mum, for anything, he
Right.
said.
about?
Okay, bye bye then.
Come on, Mrs. Blake. Got to go and get our little one from play school.
You're going to get the dinner now.
Yes, yes, in a minute, yes. Bye-bye then.
Bye bye then.
Bye.
She's going to Netheravon to collect Christopher.
Oh, I see. Your
Only-
baby, your little son.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Oh, not
Oh,
long.
he's a Christopher, is he?
Yeah.
Mm.
Only they have trouble if they got too much on their hands, you see.
Must- Oh, darling. Tis a darling children, isn't it? Bring them up in the way they should go, Tony.
Well, we do our best. It's very difficult trying to instill your own children when all the others.
You see, that is the difficulty.
But it is. I can see where they think it's unfair when you make them do something or not do something. But it is very unfair to a child to see everybody else doing something that they're not permitted to do.
Going back, I remember when I was 18, I think I told you, I left home for the first time. Father drove me into Devizes. The point I wasn't trapped. And he came onto the platform at Devizes. And as the train was steaming out of the station, as you leave Devizes, you go through a tunnel.
Yeah.
You see. And as the train was leading, he ran along the platform. I can see him now. Goodbye, my darling, he said. I was sitting in one corner of a carriage, and there was an old lady sitting in the other farther corner. I can see her now. Goodbye, my darling. I said, goodbye, Father, and I was wiping my eyes.
Aye.
He said, never do or say anything. You'll be ashamed for father and mother to see you're here. Just like that. That was my last parting word. And of course I started wiping my eyes, and the old lady got up And she came across and she sat down by the side of me. I can see her now, a little old lady. They used to dress then always in black. And she put her arm on like that. And she said, "Was that your father, my dear? And are you leaving home for the first time?" I said, "Yes." She said, "My dear child, if you remember those words, you'll never go wrong. And you know those words always haunted me all through my life." And I went to London, my Tony, and I was a fine young woman, and I had temptation after temptation. But the old devil never helped me, because my father's words were always on my mind. But I would not. I honored my father and my mother. I did honor them.
Yeah.
And if children honor their father and mother and do what father and mother does, because they do, they copy, don't they?
Oh yeah, they do to a large extent. Yeah.
They do.
Till they get a bit older.
Yes. You've got to be so careful what you do in front of children. You have. And now you speak. And what you say. My father would never have any gossip in our home. Never.
No.
I can never remember hearing any gossip. I say to Mrs. Gilbert sometimes, "Oh, the candlelight. Is there anything good?" I said, "You very seldom hear about it. But if anything's bad, what do you think? I've heard today."
That's right.
Yeah.
Isn't it so, though?
Yes.
It is so.
Same on the news, really, isn't it?
It is so. There's always been temptation, if we believe in the book at all. Eve had tempted Adam, didn't she?
She did.
They've been blaming it on the women ever since, you know.
Yes.
That's not true, is it?
No, darling. Yes. As I tell old Caroline somewhere, I said it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other.
Yeah, I think you're
When
about
you
right.
hear about these separations, I think just because one won't give in to the other. I think you don't understand one another. That's what it is. There are times, I know, I say to Teresa sometimes, she said, "Oh, Mum, you were too easy with Dad." I said, "No." I said, "There was times, Teresa, when I used to go like this sometimes." Oh. Life is what we make it, darling.
That's right.
Isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Isn't it, Tony?
Oh yeah. Well, we all shape our own destinies to a degree, don't we?
What?
I say we all shape our own destinies to a degree.
You know, there's another thing my father, when I was a little tiny girl, when we first came to Lavington, I was 6 years of age before grandfather died. And we had a little maid. There was 5 of us children. Mother had a little maid, Jess Nutland, her name was. She came to us when she was 11, when she left school. She stayed with us till she got married when she was 20. And I can remember going up in one day, Edie was upstairs making the beds, and I was opening the cupboards. She said, "Dora, what do you keep opening every cupboard for?" I said, "I'm looking for the skeleton." She said, "Skeleton?" She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I heard Father say that everybody's got a skeleton in their cupboard." I was only 6 years of age.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And I found out true those words I was travelled on in life. And we all got our faults, haven't we? Haven't we?
Yeah, I think so.
Everybody.
Yes, we have.
Sometimes it's very hard to resist things, isn't it?
Mm.
Very hard. And another thing I remember when I was a child, we had a lovely garden. We had fruit of all sorts in it. And I remember going round one evening, learning my meaning spelling, as they used to call it, and walking round the garden path with my spelling book. And at the top of the garden there was a beautiful Victoria plum tree. Oh, a beauty, huge plum. Father always told us that we were never to take anything, but if we came and asked, we could have it. But Dora, walking up the garden path, saw this beautiful, magnificent plum. I jumped up like that, picked it up, popped it in my mouth. Believe me or believe me not, there was a wasp in it. I never forgot that. Oh, I had an awful mouth. And I can hear my brother say, now, what's wrong with old Dora? She doesn't want anything to eat. No, my mouth was too sore. I didn't want it, I couldn't. But that was a lesson for me, you see. I took what wasn't. Grandfather Blake used to say to dear little Eric, we live next door, you see. And of course, it was hard for me to keep the children from, there was an apple tree at the top, you see. And he said, Mummy, there was quite a baby, Mummy, he said, Grandfee is always saying to me, either takes what isn't his'n, shall be clutched, caught, C-A-U-N,
Yeah.
That was a broad wheelchair, shall be clutched and put to prison. What does he mean, Mummy? I said, well, look, Eric, darling, we live next door to Gran and Grandfather. Yes, Mummy. He said he was only a little boy, about 4 years of age. I said, and we've got our garden, and Grandfather's got his garden. I said, and I mustn't pick Gran's flowers, and you mustn't pick Grandfather's flowers. I said, you could come to me and say, Mummy, can I pick some flowers to take to teacher? Yes. And I show him what he could pick. So he says, he says, that's what he means. I said, yes. And Grandfather's got an apple tree, hasn't he? I said, and what falls down, Grandfather doesn't mind you having. But I said, you mustn't pick them. Why not, Mummy? I said, because they're not ours. They're not yours. Oh, he said, I see. Oh, darling. Oh, well. Life is what we make it, they say, don't they? Life, we've given our lives, we got the freedom, haven't we?
Yes.
We know how far we can go, don't we? Every one of us. We do live in a very free country, don't we? Too free sometimes, I think. Don't you?
Yes.
I must admit, when you look around, I think we're probably as well off as anybody.
What, we are?
I think we're as well off as anybody. It's very
I had a letter
difficult.
from my grandson, Teresa's youngest boy. Well, son now he is. He's in the rate department for the borough of Hayes. Got on well at school, and the schoolmaster recommended him to when this job was, and I've been saving old silver.
Yes.
You know, the real silver, George's reign. And my grandchildren were all born in George's reign. So when I was over the earth, Well, back in July, while Mrs. Gilbert went for a holiday, they come down from Scotland then to look after me while Mrs. Gilbert has her holiday. And I said, oh, Arthur, there's a lot of old silver there I've collected. That'll be valuable someday. And he said, what do you want me to do with it, Mum? I said, I want you to divide it down into 3 lots. One for Mary, that's Eric's daughter. One for Trevor. And one for Andrew. And he put it all out. He divided it equally. George's reign, real silver.
Yeah.
And I said that my grandchildren were all born in George's reign. I said it'll be valuable someday. I said, will you divide it out? So he did. And I said, and as the children come, I said, you can take Stevens. That's his son, that's out in Australia now.
Yeah.
He's a doctor of science.
Is he?
And so he put them in the drawer. So when Teresa was here the other day, I said, oh, Teresa, will you take Andrew's packet of coins? What packet of coins? I said, well, you'll see what they are. I said, they're for my grandchildren. I said, but tell them not to spend them. I said, they'll be valuable someday, which they will be, won't they?
Mm.
Because the new coins, the Elysian coins, are not solid silver.
No.
And so I had a lovely card from her. I don't know whether it's here. We're back on the table. You can read it.
Is it the one with the flower?
Is it? Where is it, Leo? It's the one.
Is there a postcard?
Actually, it does. A card on the table.
Is that it?
Is it?
It's an airmail.
Airmail.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the one from Australia, from my grandson.
Is it? Yeah, that's an Australian
No,
flag.
there's
there.
one on the table, I think, darling. It came this morning.
Yeah.
Unless she left it here.
Yeah, American.
Hounslow, the postmark is.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Oh, a letter, is
A
it?
letter, yeah.
You can read it.
Dear Gran, very kind of you to give me those coins. I picked them up from Mum's when I called upon her the other lunchtime. Rest assured I will keep them in a safe place. That's nice. Anne and I are getting ready for a holiday on Sunday. We depart from London Airport for America. He's going to
For
America.
3 weeks.
Yes. San Francisco, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and the Grand Canyon.
Now, he was only 11 years old when your father died suddenly.
Yeah,
Teresa had to bring them two up, you see.
yeah.
Mum tells us you were in good health when she visited you recently. Of course, it won't be long to your next birthday. We'll arrive back home 2 days before your great day. We will try to get down to see you shortly afterwards. Look forward to seeing you then. Love from Andrew and Anne.
So I'm really proud of my grandchildren. I
Yeah.
am. Really proud of them.
Are any of them like you?
Huh.
Are any of them like you?
Well, they say Teresa's very like me. You know, I can't see it. I think she's a Blake, not a Sawyer. But people that didn't know who she was, said, well, Mrs. Dunford, her husband used to come and do the gardening.
Yeah.
She said, I went home one day and I said to William, I met a young woman in the village, a stranger, she said, but I know who she belongs to. And he said, who's that? I said, Mrs. Blake, for she's just like Mrs. Blake, but I can't see a bit of likeness myself.
Mm.
Funny, isn't it? Mm.
Yes.
And ours is like his father, upright and down straight, as he called it. Dear old Burgess, there's nothing like being upright and down straight, old girl. Nita always says, you can always stoop to pick up nothing, you know. Wonderful sayings he had. He's a good man. 28 years. We were married. And we went like that with
Yeah.
only ill 10 days.
Still, I suppose that's better than hanging on in pain,
Well,
isn't
they
it?
told me, Clement Cooley came to see me afterwards, and he said he was talking to the doctors in the hospital. They said, well, if he'd come home, he'd have been an invalid the rest of his life. And he said, you know, Dora, dear, he said, that wouldn't have done for Bert. I said, no. To sit and watch, you know, couldn't work. He was a great
Yeah.
worker. Never tired of work, he wasn't. Never. Never tired of work.
Of course, it's those of us that are left behind that suffer, isn't it? You know, when
Yes,
somebody passes
yes.
on.
Look at that poor old Mr. Durnford up there. Have you heard how ill he is, have you?
What, Bill?
Yeah.
William? I don't. He's got is it arthritis? He's got. I know.
Oh, Mr. Durnford.
Yeah,
Oh, Mr. Oliver.
Mr. Oliver. I know
Oh,
he's in a
yes,
bad way. Yeah.
well, his mind is going now. They have to have a nurse to wash him, and poor Mrs. Durnford. Daughter. Poor girl, woman, and
How old is old Mr. Oliver? Do you know?
90 odd.
90 odd. So you can give him a few years then.
Give him nearly 24, nearly 14.
14, yeah.
Well, I said to Mrs. Gilbert only this morning, we were talking about him. I said it seems wicked to keep them alive, darling. But what can you do? I said, I do hope and pray. I said, if I forget like that you'll let me slip on. Let me slip on, darling. Over the border.
Still, you don't change much down the years, Mrs. Blake.
And that's what they tell me.
I mean, well, I came and saw you a few years ago, and you really haven't changed at all in that time.
Some tell me I look younger. I said, well, I'm not younger.
No.
I said every day we're a day older. When I went to the Derby and Joan, Mrs. Chubb, can you remember Mrs.
Yeah, I
Chubb?
remember Mrs. Chubb, yeah.
She used to be cook at the manor, you know.
Did she?
Mm. She used to come in. She was rather cutting, you know. It was short. She was it.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's
And she
Mrs.
used to
Chubb.
come in. Here comes the old ancient. She would say that was me. So I put up with it for a long time until one day when I came in, she said, here comes ancient. I said, oh yes, we're all getting older, older every day. Older and bolder, so the people say. Some are getting uglier and some are getting grey, but we're all turning older, getting older every day. She never said ancient after.
You taught her a good lesson.
Yes, oh, she wanted to let me know that I was old, you said.
Yeah.
Well, we do, all of us. We're all a day older every day when we wake up, aren't we?
Mm. Actually, I met old Mrs. Chubb outside Taylor's shop one morning,
Yeah.
and I was on shift work, so I get quite a lot of days off in the week. But she really cut into me, you know, being a waster and not having a proper job.
Oh,
No, she asked me when I was going to get a job instead of just wandering the streets all day. So I said, oh, there was nothing on. You know, I couldn't get a job. You know, she didn't know about shift
No,
working and things
no.
like that.
You know, of course. There's no child I could tell you.
Was it her husband or her father that presented Stonehenge to the nation?
Yes, Tony, I could tell you, I won't keep you today, but one day when you come in, I'll tell you the history of that.
Well, that'd be interesting, I must admit.
Yeah.
But was Basil her father or her husband?
Cecil Sanger was the eldest brother of the Chubbs,
Yeah.
and their father was a saddler at Fruiton. Had a saddlery business,
Yeah.
like Lou Dowse had at Netheravon.
Yeah.
You can't remember the Dowses, can you?
Was that opposite the old Legion?
Yes,
I don't remember the Dowses. The name's vaguely
they
familiar.
were saddlers in the village when I came here.
Yeah.
There was so I say now, there was a tailor up here, Taylor Howell, and where Ivy Shepherd lived, where Mrs. Shepherd lives.
Yeah,
now.
opposite the school.
And there was 2 or 3 blacksmiths, Shepherd's the blacksmith, and 2 shepherds, blacksmith. One, and then there was what's her name, the Hoe people, where Lily and Hayward lives now, Miss Hayward. What was her name there? Buckland's house,
Yeah.
Netheravon. Do you know that corner house, don't you? As you come down over the bridge here and turn round to go, belongs to Kipes now.
Oh, I know. Yeah, at the bottom of the hill.
Well, that's where the blacksmith shop used to be.
Yeah.
At
There
the
was a-
Bucklands, and they made a certain hoe.
Oh,
You know, a garden hoe.
yeah. And there was one in not Veranda, Horseshoe Villas, wasn't there?
Yes. When I first came about the post office where the clock is,
Yeah.
before that it was the Smiths had it in that very old corner house.
Mm.
The Smiths were the family that got on easily, you see.
Yeah.
They had the brains, I suppose. Oh, well.
Of course, I suppose you remember the electricity and such like coming through, do you?
Yes. Yes. Grandfather Blake was the first one to have television.
Was he?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and about the first one to have the electric light. He always kept up. Poor old grandfather. Oh, you should say to me, poor Dora makes 2 bad things altogether, he used to say. But I used to say to grandfather, if you're that poor that you can't lift your head, I said, what can you do? You can't, can you? That's what they did years ago, you see, dear, didn't they?
Mm.
They kept you down. They did keep you down. Yes, there was the blanket club and the coal club here, you know, years ago. Paid a shilling a week.
We found some old cards when they pulled down the vicarage.
Did they?
I'll bring them down and show you.
Oh.
Clothing cards.
I know. I remember that. Blanket Blake, my mother-in-law, she belonged to the coal club, the blanket club. Shilling a week they used to, or 6 according to what, perhaps it'll be only sometimes.